Good morning. We are live with ZENcast. How's everybody this morning? I want to welcome you and thank you for taking your valuable time and being with us today. Hope that we can encourage some ZENworks information here for you. What is ZENcast? It's a place where you can participate as ZENworks administrators, discussions and demonstrations, reaching out to the community. We're just trying to be here for you. It's just another forum and resource. Doesn't exclude anything else that's already out there. It just kind of adds to it and gives you a little more live information. So continue to use the forums and the ideas portals and all of that. But please share in here, and there's a chat down below. Feel free to chat questions and comments, and we'd love to have you participate. So we're going to be doing demonstrations on stream. We really want that feedback to improve this ZENworks product. And we'll try and answer them along the way. If not, we'll get to them afterwards. A little bit of house cleaning, or housekeeping, I should say. There's commands down that we have in chat. So, for instance, in chat, if you wanted to look up a particular, you want to know where the knowledge base is, you do KB in chat, and it'll respond with a link so that you can find those cookbooks or those TIDs that you're looking for. So then there's other commands like one thing I wanted to mention is we did notice in our testing that YouTube settings. So YT settings. Be sure to double check these. Make sure autoplay is off so it doesn't get you off into the YouTube world. And then also some settings here for 720 and 60 HD. So take a look at those settings on your YouTube stream to see how those are working for you. Those we found were the best settings to get a quality input here. There's other settings like schedule. And that will give us our schedule and how long we're going to pilot this particular program to see if it's something that you really want to tap into and if it's viable for you as the ZENworks community. Another thing we can do is if you put an @ sign, if you have a question and if you put in an @ sign in front of it of the username, you can respond directly to that user. And you'll actually get highlighted on your YouTube chat. So if you're not familiar with the chat in YouTube or other platforms, the @ with the name of the user will actually respond back to that user with a highlight, knowing that somebody responded his particular question or comment. So be aware of that. And from here on, we're gonna go ahead. I did have one other. Docs is another one if you're trying to find the documentation location, and then ZCM logging. So a few of the commands, I'll have those posted on the site coming up, but there's some links for you if you're looking for particular TIDs or logging. Okay, and that's pretty much on the housekeeping. We'll be posting the stream live, or it's live right now, but we're going to be posting clips of it so that you can review it later if you happen to miss it or want to double check it and see what's going on or what transpired. So I have a poll. Doesn't look like there's too many people in here, but let me open up a poll setting here for you. I'd like to do a poll to see what time zone you're in. Because I know right now we're North America, and that isn't conducive to everybody, but I did want to start the time zone or poll. And at the bottom in your chat, you could see if you respond with exclamation vote, space, and either EMEA, North America, Asia Pac, South America, it'll then put in your vote. So if you have a particular location, it would be great to know exactly where you're coming from so that we can at least understand your time frame and your time zone. Okay, so that's gonna be open for another minute now. I'll go ahead and put in mine. So it's vote and NA. So that'll start tallying up the votes and give a location of where everybody's located here. Okay, so we really appreciate you coming in. Should this be successful, we want to expand it to the other time zones so you're not either late evening or early morning participating. We'd really like to have you participate in your time, but that'll take time. We obviously need to see if this is a viable solution to your time zone. So thank you for putting in those time zones. It'll be available for another, it's just about winding up. So we got a few. Looks like North America's pretty much hit it off. Thanks, Lauren. Good to see you. Glad to have you here with us. And then there is a survey that I put out on Google that gives me a little more idea of not just your time zone, but reoccurring ZENcast and a little bit about your environment and what you're interested in. So at the end of the stream, we'll go ahead and have that for you. It'll be a link. But for today's agenda, I just want to tell you we're going to do some introductions, news. We're going to do some ZCM upgrade options, and primarily in the database right now. Next week, we're going to cover more of the ZCM 2017 to 2020. And so we're going to, in the demonstration, we're going to migrate a database with the migration tool, both from MSSQL to Postgres, those wanting to leave or move over from the MSSQL platform to Postgres, and also the Sybase, which is very important for the 2017, right? We have to, 2017 is the last version that supports the Sybase. So we need to migrate off before going to 2020. So we'll show you a little bit about that today. So I'm looking forward to showing you those things. So again, let me go over to some discussion and news. So I want to let you know that right now, this is the first one, is the ZENcast going live today. So I appreciate you guys here. You should be able to subscribe to this playlist or the support and training channel for Micro Focus on YouTube, and you'll get notified when this goes live or when they're promoting it. They're also promoting it on everyone's social, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So you should be getting notifications on that if you've subscribed in those locations. Also, the TTP EMEA conference, 2020 conference, is out there starting next week. This weekend, they're going to have some workshops included. It's at the University of Regensburg in Germany. Beautiful country. A little late for the registration, but the registration link is there. If you want more details about that, go to the ttp.org, and you could see different things about what's going on at that location in that event. Also, the Micro Focus UVerse 2020 is coming out. EMEA is happening on March 17th through the 19th in the Netherlands, in Hague. So if you're out in that area and you want to participate and see what's going on with Micro Focus and the whole big corporate, all the products, they'll be represented there. Also in the U.S., May 19th through the 21st, San Antonio, Texas. Okay, so the U.S. will have one too later in the year. And if you want to, again, if you're in the area and you want to see the Micro Focus product lines and have questions, talk to people about different solutions, that's a good place to go. Next, we're going to go to the product news. Here to announce that ZENworks Service Desk released version 8.12, January 2020. That's, you can install through the online update channel in the administration console. So be sure to check that out. It'll probably be along with their quarterly security updates that they released just a couple weeks ago. So if you go to the online updates channel and you've registered, needed patches, if you still need 812 or 811, they'll both show up. Well, 811 first, then 812. And you'll get those updates automatically. Very little downtime there, just to restart some services after it installs. So just be aware of that. It installs and then it updates the schema and you're good. So again, ZSD appliance security updates are trying to get on a quarterly cadence. So next release is in May 2020. So that way the operating system online updates will be applicable and the security on your appliance is secure. So also if there's any enhancements like an 813 or something, it'll also be in there. As long as on Service Desk, as long as the operating system doesn't change, the online updates will allow you to do a product upgrade. Okay, but if it does, then obviously we're going to deploy another appliance and bring the VA storage over. Another news is ZENworks Configuration Management. ZCM 2020 Update 1 beta program is going on right now. You can still register for that at zen@microfocus.com. It started February 12th, but our first real meeting is going to be like next week or the week following. So we're looking for those people. If you haven't been on a beta, it's always good to go on a beta to see what's coming on with the latest ZENworks Configuration Management. You can actually see before it actually is released what we're doing. You actually get to talk with the engineers that are involved, the developers, help them create this ZENworks platform for you that leverage your thoughts and so forth. So be aware of that. Please sign up for the beta program. That'll be very helpful both to the product and to everybody using ZENworks. Also, the database migration tool for ZENworks. As you know, Sybase is no longer supported on 2020, so we need to get off in 2017. If you launch the ISO for 2020 and you have Sybase, it'll basically halt the operation and tell you need to migrate off of Sybase and go ahead and migrate to another platform. And we do have a tool out there that automatically goes from Sybase to PostgreSQL. And we just added in version 2, which is available to the customers on your portal. Version 2 has MSSQL to PostgreSQL. So we do have those solutions available to you. It's the same tool that does either one, and we'll demonstrate those today. So I hope you're able to do that without too much of an issue. The final thing, Micro Focus Desktop Containers 12.6 was released in January. In case you're using the MFDC, 12.6 is out there with some of the latest and greatest stuff attached to that particular application. All right, next is forum news. So some interesting news. As you know, Windows 7 is no longer supported by Microsoft, right? But they do have the extended security updates. And one of the forum news that we have out there, there's a great article under Micro Focus forum news, installing Windows 7 or Windows Server 2008 extended security updates with ZENworks Patch Management. So you are able to subscribe to that and be able to deploy patches if you're still on Windows 7 and Microsoft allows you those extended security updates. There is a subscription for that, but you can contact your customer rep for that particular added on for patch management. There's an article, 2017 to 2020 Appliance Migration Clarification. So it's just a little bit of background about migrating from 2017 to 2020, things to do, some best practices and so forth. So keep that one in mind as you go through that particular article. There's a ZCM article for patches, as I mentioned, the extended security updates, subscriptions, contact your rep, and then extended security updates you can manually download the KB if you know what they are and package them manually. And then there's an article that allows you that you can do some patch. You could still have it for patch reporting. So even though you don't have the subscription from us, if you wanted to do it manually, you're able to do that. Bundles, there's a great article out there about the new install action. It's an executable action. So now we have an install executable action instead of launch executable. That's still there, but now you can do an install action, which is great to have. There's also another article that was put out there, creating shortcuts via PowerShell, and then using ZCM to migrate from Oracle JRE to OpenJRE. We've had a lot of questions on at support. You know, Oracle is no longer supporting the Java. How do I get to OpenJRE? So there's a nice article out there, so you can go ahead and check that out when you have time. If you have a lot of Oracle Java you need to update. And then, of course, the databases, internal Sybase or external MSSQL to Postgres. Configuring and using Vertica Management Console. Now, Vertica is a new concept in ZCM 2020. So if you're uncertain about what that's about, we have a few articles out there about that. It's primarily for larger communities, or larger companies or environments that Vertica really comes into play, and you can leverage some reporting that way. Monitoring and debugging the Vertica data sync process in ZENworks is another one. So those are the latest ZCM updated forum notes out there, articles out there. And then we have a couple of Service Desk ones, hassle-free deployment of Service Desk, and migrate external MSSQL database to embedded PostgreSQL. We have that tool available also, contact support for that if you're trying to move your Service Desk from Microsoft SQL to Postgres. And then ZSD version 8.2 will have a progressive mobile web app. There's an article out about that. 8.2, as you know, will have the technician portal taken care of. 8.1 had the user or customer portal. So once the technician portal is done, part of that will be the progressive mobile app. So go out there and see what that's about. The article is out there. Also, ZRS, create or view your customized ZSD reports in ZRS. So if you wanted to or weren't sure how, you can. This particular article tells you how to connect and create some reports in ZRF from Service Desk. So those should be helpful to you. Just wanted to make sure you're aware that those were out there so that they can be utilized and that you can get more out of your product. And finally, we have the webinar series, Q1, Q1 2020 webinar series. It's been going on now. Obviously, we're in the third month. Some of the recent recordings was modern application packaging with Admin Studio, which was a great way. If you have Admin Studio, the ZENworks edition, they talk about how to repackaging your particular applications so that you can streamline some of your processes in ZENworks. Unified Endpoint Management Roadmap Review was done by Jason Blackett a few weeks back. So that's out there. I just want to let you know that that's interesting to see where we're moving to and what we have in store for you for the future. Enhanced capabilities of Enterprise Store in ZENworks Service Desk was just last week. Great review on the Service Desk Store. As you know, if you have ZENworks Configuration Management, you have at least 2 licenses of Service Desk. So you should be able to pull up the store and be able to leverage the store for deploying bundles to your users. And then we still have a couple upcoming for this quarter. Achieve zero-touch Windows 10 deployment using ZENworks with MDT. And that's in a week or so. So March 12th. So if you're moving your imaging over to MDT, or you want to start up your imaging, but Windows 10 deployments, you can do some active zero touch on that. So it's going to be a great webinar. You can ask questions and find out what's going on with that particular product, part of the product. And then moving to WinPE-based imaging by leveraging your existing ZENworks images. Again, it's an imaging one. It's a month later, April 2nd, but I think you'll get a lot out of these if you're imaging or even thinking of imaging. Give it a go. Watch the webinar. See if it's something that you can deploy out in your environment. Are there any questions in chat regarding any of these items? I don't see anything in chat. Let's see. Oh, we got a few things. Yeah. Hey, Jim, how are you? Nice to have you in chat. Thank you for coming in. Good to see you. Okay, well, we'll move on to the next step here. We're going to do a couple of polls. All right. I just want to get an idea of your environment here. Some of you may have filled out the survey, but let's go ahead and see with people online here. I'm kind of curious to see what your ZSD environment is. So let me start this poll up. And again, the way to do the poll is to do exclamation point. Oh, hang on. I need to complete the last poll. And we will complete it. Let's go ahead and poll for ZSD. So again, do an exclamation point vote, and then put either 812, 811, the version that you have of ZENworks Service Desk. This will run about 90 seconds, so you got a little bit of time. If you're uncertain, the closest one, I'm sure you know if the latest one, because that would have been on the online update. So looking forward to seeing how many of you, how far we have to go. There's a couple of videos out there that goes actually way back from 702, 703. It migrates to 7.5, so it gives you a nice view of how to do that. And then, of course, there's a couple of videos going from 7.4 and 7.5 to 8.x, allowing you to see exactly what's going to happen when you start that migration. Again, when you do migrations, you can upgrade 2 versions at a time, right? Meaning 2 version levels. So if you're going from 7, let's say you're going from 7.5 to 8.1, you can jump directly there because the only thing in between is 8.0. If you're going from 7.4 to 8.1, you'd have to either bump to 7.5 and then to 8.1 or to 8.0 and then to 8.1. So there's a few things. The documentation is real clear on that, but this gives you an idea of how to space it out. Give yourself about an hour per bump, and I think that'll be good. So I didn't get too many votes on that one. I hope the polls are working for you. Let's see. I'll go ahead and cancel that one. We'll move back to ZSD. Maybe nobody's on ZSD on who's online. Let's go over to ZCM. We'll go to the ZCM poll. Here's another poll. Again, if you're on 2020, 2017, 11.4, 11.3. This way we can get an idea of what's going on with your ZCM. Of course, we're going to want to know, the next question will be obvious, are you on Sybase? So we'll figure that out in just a minute. Just want to know who I'm addressing in the audience, so it kind of gives me a little bit of an idea of how to work the stream here when we do our demonstrations for the Sybase database. So if you have that, go ahead and vote. I'll put in 2020. Okay. And that's how you'd put it in. So go ahead and feel free to vote, and it just kind of gives me an idea. Got about 30 seconds left on that. So again, Sybase database no longer supported. 2008, obviously on 2017 isn't supported, and 2020 isn't supported. They bumped those up. So there are some limitations coming down the line if you're on 11.4. And so there will be some shifting to do. And I hope that today's chat, we can cover some of those ways to get from point A to point B for you. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and complete that poll. The next one, again, I'm going to go ahead and skip the next one since I didn't get any ZCM environments. Well, it's for today, so let's go ahead and poll anyhow, the Sybase. How many of you might be on Sybase that are in the audience? Oh, that's not right. Okay. That's basically how you'd vote. Put exclamation vote. And then if you're on Sybase or if you're on other. If you're on other, you just have to check the docs to see if it's still supported, right? So are there any questions also as we go through this? Just checking, looking for some interaction if anybody's has some questions about what's going on. Both don't mind interaction from the engineers that might be on also, so feel free. The poll still has about 30 seconds. So go ahead and vote, and it'll help me on my stream today when we do our demonstration. So also the other thing is as you know, the appliance they're working on an Oracle to PostgreSQL for the database. And also if you have let's say you have a Windows box where you have Sybase loaded and you want to go directly to an appliance that's existing, just being able to migrate straight over without having to do some disaster recovery stuff. And then one last thing that I wanted to check out was a poll regarding 2020. So 2020 update 1, we're in beta, as you know, as I mentioned earlier. Are you planning on waiting, or are you planning on moving to 2020, or maybe you're already there? And this is just a curiosity on my part. Let me go ahead and vote here. B4. Okay. So we have some polls. The polls going out regarding planning on migrating to ZCM 2020 before update 1. We have a lot of customers that's already moved to 2020. So we have a lot of, it looks like it's a real positive move as far as support calls have gone down, and we've been able to take care of those that seem to have issues. But a lot of it surrounded whether or not they had the Sybase already installed or 2008, or so a lot of those questions come up. And again, I hope this next part of the stream will help disseminate some of that information. We got about 5 seconds left on this particular. Thanks, Jim, for chiming in. And Lauren, appreciate it. So we're going to complete this poll. Next up on the agenda is going over to this particular section here. What we've done is we started scrubbing the documentation and trying to find a format for you as a customer to be able to do your upgrades logically. Now, of course, you still have to go back to the documentation and get those particulars in there, but for the most part, we have the upgrade information here for 11.4, 2017, all the way through the different updates to 2020. So if you've seen the ZENworks Service Desk, we did a similar thing in a spreadsheet so that you can easily see what your migration path is. So in this particular case, we've scrubbed the documents between 11.4 all the way up to 2020 and put them in this particular format. So I hope this helps. For instance, you could see that 2008 was supported in 11.4, but no longer supported in 2017. Okay, so if you're on 2008, one thing to check, oh yeah, it's not supported. So hopefully this will help. Also, OES versions were not supported on 11.4 in 2017, and it basically just dropped off. Okay, same with Red Hat Enterprises as a platform to install ZENworks on at this time. So if you look at Celeste, so for instance, Celeste, we have 11.4, 2017, but then they dropped the support for Celeste, no update in 2020, right? So hopefully this will help you. Again, you can see that 2020 now supports the 15, but we also added in, if you're on a non-appliance, you'll have to install the libx tst RPM, and then on Celeste 2015, you also need, or Celeste 15, you'll need to also update the OS targets XML file. Okay. Again, the RAM, looking over the RAM, after 11.4, it pretty much stuck at 8, 12 recommended, and then also 1 gigabyte of RAM every 3,000. This really hasn't changed until you start getting into 2020, where we're recommending 16 gigabytes. Okay, and the appliance, especially if it's a Vertica, 16 is required. Okay, can you get away with 8 without the Vertica? You can, but it's still recommended as 16. Okay, so as you progress and get that new hardware in, you might plan for that. Also, the CPU hasn't changed at all since 2017, but the disk space, how to calculate for disk space, same thing, hasn't really changed too much. It's gone up in 2020 for the non-appliance for the installation, and then on the appliance you have 60 gigabytes, obviously, and then whatever you calculate on the VA storage volume for what you have. If you have patch, if you have a database resident, and so forth. And then, of course, the database requirements. You could see the Sybase drops off at 2020. Okay. Embedded PostgreSQL, you can see we have 11.4, and we have a tool to migrate from Sybase to PostgreSQL. Oracle, you can see how we've picked up Oracle 18 and 19 for 2020. MSSQL 2008 dropped off as a database during 2020. If you start the install ISO for 2020 and it sees 2008, it'll halt it. It'll say, sorry, you don't have the requirements met for the database. So be aware of that. It'll catch you if you happen to miss something on this particular form or in the documentation. Okay? And then the hypervisors also. I have those there. We have some dependencies. The only thing that's really changed is since 11.4 is we went up to 4.5 for .NET, right? The full. Otherwise, we have everything the same for .NET and the user sources. Another thing that has changed for ZCM 2020 is the SHA-2 signature 1 to 2 years for the MDM. If you're using an MDM server, that certificate has to be 1 to 2 years. That's an Apple recommendation or an Apple a requirement. They did it 700 something days, if I remember correctly. So it was max 2 years, as well within their limits. So that's something to be aware of. Reporting server, we've improved that reporting server throughout, but we also have backwards compatibility for 11.4x and 2017. So if you do happen to have mobile management support in your zone, here are some of the requirements that we've put in place. Not only just the browsers, but also the mobile iOS support and what version support which iOS version as well as Android. Okay. Display video adapters never changed, and Internet Explorer different versions as you go up the chain to 2020. What's recommended and required. All right. And thank you, Moises. He mentions OES is not supported as a Zen primary server, but still supported as managed device. Yes, thank you for bringing that up, because this particular spreadsheet is on primary servers, and we're going to be scrubbing the managed device, inventory-only devices, and satellites next. So you'll see OES obviously on those particular forms. So thanks, Moises, for adding that in. I appreciate that. Okay. And again, we'll once we get this in a particular format that's viable, we'll go ahead and put these on the cookbooks, the 11.4, the 2017, and the 2020 cookbooks. Okay. All right, let's go over to some more discussion. If you have any chat, go ahead and come on in. Is there any discussion on ZCM upgrades that you're looking for? Development's working on the Oracle to PostgreSQL and migrating the database, migrating the OS from Sybase to an appliance PostgreSQL is out there, so that you don't have to go through some DR activity. They're in development of that. So they're really working on the tool, trying to make it easier for you to move from one platform to the next and keep increasing or getting the latest version of 2020. And again, be sure to follow the documentation on this. It's real important to have the documentation, double check the documentation for those RPMs you may need to install, or those types of things. Okay. I think it's time that if we don't have any chat here, I think it's time that we go on into some DB migrations. Are we okay to move along? Any other questions on the spreadsheet or anything? Okay. We'll move forward then. Let me get my screen set up here. I think I got it large enough. We were working on it yesterday. I think I got it large enough to where we can, you guys can see it without too much trouble. So let me go on over to my other screen. All right. So 150, we have a zone here that, let me bring up the 150. You can see it's running Sybase SQL Anywhere. It's 150, right? This is the administration console. Timed out. Let's go ahead and back in. Okay, and we're currently at 17.4.0. Again, just the minimum is 17.4x to be able to use this tool. In the control center, in our DA zone, we have, if we look under diagnostics, we can then again see we're running the OEM Sybase database, all on 150. So it's all on this particular server. Okay. Let's go ahead and start this upgrade then. We're going to go ahead and minimize this. We're going to go ahead and log in as root. One thing we do want to verify, let me get over to is we need to go over here, home, services. SSHD is running, otherwise you obviously won't be able to get to it with WinSCP. So we have our WinSCP already up and running. I created under VA temp a temp directory, and we're going to drop our migration tool in there. It's a 2.0 tool, so I'm going to upload so that we can run this particular tool. Okay. I'll try and answer chat along the way as you put it in. So if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask those questions. And if I'm not answering them or another engineer gets to you first, all the better. Okay. So we're almost done upgrading. We're going to go back over to my zone appliance. Let's go CD you see the DB tools in there. And we're done. I see that it's done copying, so let's go ahead and run the command. So we're going to go op novel ZENworks share Java bin Java. So it's already, you have Java in there already to install it. We're going to go to -jar, and this is all in the documentation. DB migration tool. It'll first copy some resources. It'll then say, okay, are you sure you want to do this? All right. One thing you want to make sure is ensure that all the server services are stopped on the other primary servers. Else it will terminate and say not all services are stopped. Stop all services and restart this. So we're going to go ahead and say, yes, I'm ready to proceed. Now we put in the ZCC login. I'm going to use administrator. Again, that particular administrator has to have enough rights to be able to do this migration, so be aware of that. Now it's verifying services are still running or not. I don't have any other primaries in the zone, so it should just go ahead and continue on. And what it'll do is it'll run a quick ZDC. Now you should run, as a matter of best practice, you should run ZDC, the full one prior to, just to make sure you have file system files integrity. And but let's go ahead and it will run a ZDC, and this is a database only. So it's, since we're migrating only the database, we're going to just check the database for its integrity, and then there'll be some reports to look at. And now it's running ZDC. You can see it's an embedded Sybase, and it's running the verifier. Again, the system files are not checked on this particular one. So as it's running through this, any questions? They've done a really nice job on this particular tool. Now also the audit, so it goes through both. And it finally asks us, do we want to go embedded Postgres or external Postgres? Obviously, if you select external Postgres, it's going to ask you for some parameters of where that is. Internal or embedded, it'll take it on its own. So we're going to say embedded, and then we're going to press enter to start, and then it also asks you for the audit, and then press enter to start the migration. So it's very few clicks, very intuitive, and we're going to go ahead and start that particular process. And I've timed this one. It's about 6 minutes or so on mine. Of course, I don't have much going on my boxes, just a few bundles and stuff. So these are pretty much generic upgrades, but at least you'll get a visual on what's happening with it. And we can go ahead and look at, you might say, well, what if it's having an issue, or how do I see what it's doing besides the console? We'll go ahead and go over to our WinSCP. And again, we'll go to VAROpt, where the logs are. Novell, log, ZENworks. There's a migration now. And there's your migration log. Basically, it's recording everything that's going on the console. Okay. And here's your ZDC reports. Okay. Now what we might want to do if we want to look at those ZDC reports is we can download them. And we want to download them. Yeah, we can put them right there. Okay. If we look at the index HTML and open. Oh, I won't be able to open them here. I'll have to open them. Oh no, it does open. Okay, good. System information. Database report. Looks like we have one assignment that now we would have caught this if we ran the ZDC alone. We don't have any VPP assignments going on in mine. Not to discard it, we want to make sure we fix that. So you are able to fix these prior to, and had you run the full ZDC, you would have been able to see this particular error. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and look at the audit. Oh, it's not edit. Sorry. System information and obviously the audit database. Okay, so we can see what's going on. The ZDC, it is there. Okay, and then of course the migration log is here as well. And I did see on the console it was a success, it looked like. Migration success. Oh, that was particular actions are taken up. Migration success. So do we have any questions going on here in chat about this process? As soon as it comes up, there will be some fine tuning we'll need to do, especially if we have other primaries, but it'll tell you right in the utility on how to deal with those. Because now that we've moved to another database, your password's going to be different on the Postgres as far as the database administrator, because Sybase had one and now we're on Postgres. And then also your primary servers still know about the Sybase, and they're going to want to touch base with the correct PostgreSQL. So you have to move a few files. And that's all documented. We won't need to do that because we only have one primary in my particular zone. But I hope that is understandable. Any questions on that? And you say, what happens if something fails? You basically have to abort. There is a command out there, and it's all documented. Postgres to Sybase revert configure action. So being able to revert back to the Sybase, because the Sybase isn't deleted. So if you're wondering what happens to the Sybase, it stays there. It isn't deleted. You're able to use it again if you need to revert back. Then you can figure out what's going on with the Postgres, why it failed, and then what you can do is you can either restart the migration if it had to abort, or you can continue where it left off. So you have a couple of options. When you kick it back off, it'll ask you whether to revert, if you reverted and you need to start where you left off, or if you wanted to restart the whole thing. So that should be helpful for you, should that take care of. Again, that's a Novell ZENworks configure -C, and it's Postgres to Sybase revert configure action. Boy, there's a lot of words in there. Okay, so anyway, that's documented. You'll be able to see it. It's good to go. Do be aware of the space limitations for your database. Of course, you're putting another database, or you're enacting a database on this appliance that you're going from Sybase to Postgres. So make sure you have database accounted for, the disk space. That'll be helpful. You don't want to run out. This should be close to done. So disk space is important. I haven't actually, thanks for asking, I haven't actually looked to see what the differences are between the space taken up by Sybase and taken up by Postgres. I'm sure it can't be too much different. Again, it depends on the size of the database starting and what you have in it. So I don't know what those comparisons are. Let's see, but you can do a du space minus sh, and it will give you for that directory and everything below it what the size is. I'm going to go ahead and open up WinSCP again, and we're going to be able to go over to the Sybase. var op. So var op novel PGSQL is the Sybase. Is the Postgres. ZENworks database is the Sybase. So here's your Sybase. And here's a Postgres. We do show it's complete. So there are some steps to follow, as you see up here. After a successful database migration, you want to do A, B, and C. So as we mentioned earlier, the ZDM XMLs, or the XML files and the properties files are so it can find the database and log into the database. So you want to copy those off the master, which is this particular primary, to the other ones. If you're using embedded PostgreSQL, you want to change the ZDM XML and the ZenAudit XML files with the IP address. Because if you're just copying the files from this location, the IP address of the database for itself is 127.0.0.1. So when you move those over to another primary, you want to make sure that IP is changed, right? So they can find this particular server where the database resides. And then finally, the search config XML. Double check that. Make sure that you have that in the right location. You can overwrite the existing one. That's so for case sensitivity on the login. Those are the two things to be concerned with. I'm going to go ahead and do an init 6. And restart. And then we'll go ahead and bring up our console, admin console. Any questions on that process? Any questions on moving to the files? Just want to make sure moving to the files isn't a confusing thing. Obviously, they have to find the database and log in properly. So that has some hash passwords and so forth. Okay, we're starting up. So this comes up fairly quick, but then it takes a minute for the Jetty to actually get started. So we'll go back on over to, we'll start into our second one. Let's go on over while this is coming up, because it will take a minute or two. Don't want too much dead air. Unless it's up already. Let's see. Yeah, not yet. Let's take a look at our second zone. I have a development zone here on Microsoft SQL Server. So I have a second SQL Server on 16, and this is 160. And in our control center, if we log in, This is a development zone. Let's take a look at that. Configuration, actually diagnostics. Again, only a single primary, but you can see I have an SQL server on 16, and we have one primary. Okay, we're going to kick that one off in just a minute. Let's go back on over to this guy and see if it's back yet. There it is. Sign in. And you can see we're on PostgreSQL now. Okay. This one's still coming up. So we had a successful migration. Everything should take off and run as normal at this point. So you should be good to go. Let's go on over to any questions on that upgrade. Successful for the demo gods, right? Nice. All right. Okay, let's move along into our second. Moving from MSSQL to PostgreSQL. You can see we have a MSSQL Windows server. And here's our development zone. So let's go ahead and log in. Okay. Let's go over to see if we have SSHD turned off or on. It's running already, so we should be able to win SCP to it. And I might already be. We can reconnect to that. That's 150, that's our old one. I'll go ahead and terminate that. We're on 160. Okay, we have our VA storage temp. We're going to, again, upload the same tool. And it will detect that it has a MSSQL. Any questions? Chat's pretty quiet out there. I hope you're not falling asleep on me. Hello, chat. All right, so this is almost upgraded or uploaded. We'll go ahead and close the 150 since we don't have any other questions. We'll go on over to WinSCP. We see it's uploaded. Let's go now to our server. And we'll do the same thing. CD, VA, storage, temp, CD, DB. And we're going to run the same command, right? We're going to run the /op novell ZENworks share java bin java -jar and db. Okay. All right, so we do have the same questions that we were asked before, right? Make sure you want to proceed. Notice it says it currently is using an SQL Server database, right in the middle of the screen. So it does detect what you're using. We're going to say yes. We want to migrate to PostgreSQL. Okay, we're going to log in. It's going to check the other servers, see if anything's running. It'll terminate if it does see services running. And it should start up and ask if what we're migrating to. Let me open up PostgreSQL because it's going to run ZDC. So if you have any questions about this process or something you'd want to see included in a demo on the product when I set up videos for this, so that we can include those questions, it would be very helpful. So it's currently running the ZDC process. And again, var wherever the logs are, right? ZDC, it's still running, so it hasn't compiled anything. Actually, it would be ZENworks migration, ZDC. There's your migration log. You can do some custom or silent installs using some of these files that are available. So that's all documented. We're not going to cover any of that here. Okay, what do we have here? We have, okay, ZDC is done. Let's go to embedded PostgreSQL. We'll select one. Yes. And for the audit, we want the same. And enter to start the migration, and we'll kick that off. Does some checks. You can see it's migrating from MSSQL to PostgreSQL. All right. Let me see what we have here. For ZDC reports, let me bring both of these over. Let's see what we have on this particular zone. I have an issue. It changes size, so it has an issue going between the two screens. Okay, that particular dev appliance is good to go. And if we go ahead and look in the other one, oh, not default, that's open. And we can see the system information, Microsoft SQL Server, and we can see the database information. Everything's where it should be. All right. Still quiet out there. Is it that intriguing? It's going through all the tables and migrating them across. We'll go ahead. Again, under the regular log location, under migration, you'll have the Novell ZENworks migration log. Basically what you're seeing on the screen. But it comes in handy if there's a particular table that was an issue, or you have a problem and it basically aborts. This is one of the logs you want to check out. We'll wait for it to finish here. So, Chad, anybody out there? How we doing? I know a few of you are out there. I want to make sure this is informative. So it's getting through the NC product now. So now it's into the N's on the tables. And then we have the Z's for the Z bundles and stuff coming up. There they are. So it's getting there. And as a baseline, you can see it doesn't take very long with just a blank one. had really, really good success with this particular tool. I'm really liking that the MSSQL is in it as well, and they're working on the Oracle. So that'll be, for those of you wanting to get off of those particular platforms and save some costs and some maintenance, PostgreSQL. What do you use for PostgreSQL? You can go ahead and it's I'm drawing a blank now. The database is pgadmin 4. You can download that for free and attach to the database. And also, we're done. Oh, we're done. Again, you'll see steps to follow, and you have these XML files. It should be copied to the location. If you're using embedded, make sure that you change this IP address to the IP address of the PostgreSQL server, and then copy them over. And then, of course, a search for the case sensitivity. So we're going to do another init. Restart the whole thing. Does the tool do disk-based checks before starting the program? I don't believe so. I think we've actually ran out of space doing it because it wasn't checked prior, and they had a large database, and it didn't check. So that's easy for me to test, and I can come back next week with those answers. But I'm pretty certain it does not do a disk check for disk space. So you have to check that. And I think the documentation tells you that. Make sure you have the disk space allotted prior to. That's in the prep. So thanks for asking, Moises. So again, this is a view of it, but not necessarily the documents. Check out the documents. You can we can do, where's my keyboard? So if you follow that link, obviously you can then click on ZENworks and migration. I didn't, there it is. Okay, there's the link. We're coming back up. So more news coming up on what's happening next week. The dev zone is up. Let's go ahead and see if we can get these guys running again. Now, of course, you want to decommission that MSSQL once you're, at least turn it off and test it. Don't decommission it until you're certain that everything's running fine on the PostgreSQL. So give it a a week or so. Again, if you do a revert, you have to make sure that you're going to lose anything that was done in between. So for instance, if we are on PostgreSQL now and we want to revert, or if we're on Sybase and we moved to PostgreSQL or MSSQL and went to PostgreSQL and we did things for a couple of days and then we decided, oh, I want to go back to the original database, you're going to lose whatever was done in between. So waiting for this to come up, see if it'll come up. There we are. Sign in. So dev zone, check out our database. See if I can get this guy to come back up too. Okay, so you can now see we're on PostgreSQL on 160. It's not on 16 anymore. This one's still working on coming up. So we have a successful upgrade going into that. If we hit this one here. Oh, let's see if we can get it going. It'll just take a minute for it to come up, as you know. Any questions on that? MSSQL to PostgreSQL? I was just going to show you the diagnostics so that you can see that it's MSSQL. Everything else is the same. Did a great job on this tool. I'm really excited about it. I think that'll help you out in the field be able to use this a little easier. There we are. And there we go, PostgreSQL on 160. The demo gods were with us. So good to see that. Any other questions regarding, before we move on? That was the demonstrations. I hope that was helpful for you to see. It is really just that simple. So I'm excited for the customers to use the tool. It's really, really a good tool. And there is a 1.2 that was out there that works all the way, that works for the Sybase to PostgreSQL, but you won't be able to do the MSSQL until you get version 2, which is posted out on the customer portal, just so you know. Okay. If there's no other questions or comments in chat, I'm going to move on over to discussion for next week. Okay. We have more product news coming down the line. We're going to have a guest speaker next week, Darren Vandenbos. I don't want to be the only talking head on this thing, so there are more of us out there, plenty of engineers and developers and stuff that would be happy to talk and be able to share what they're getting into for the product line. So we will have Darren Vandenbos. Tried to get Jason this week, but I think he's traveling. So we'll try and have a guest speaker each week, and at least in chat. And then we're going to have a demonstration of the ZCM 2020 upgrade. So you'll actually see the 2017, again, .x. It won't matter if you're on update 0 all the way to update 4 FRU1. That upgrade will take off as long as you have the prerequisites in place for the database and primary servers. So we're going to do that next week. I do want to double check. It's going to be a similar format. So we're going to have some community talk. We're going to have some questions and answers if you had any. And then we're going to go into what we're demonstrating. Hopefully I'll have some of the managed devices scrubbed in that spreadsheet we saw. We'll try and have some other things scrubbed for you so that you can see at least satellites or something next week. Following that, we'll get the ZENworks integration with Service Desk. So we don't want to leave you Service Desk people out. We're gonna show some integration there and how you can easily leverage the store. Even if you don't have Service Desk up today, but you own ZCM, you can do that. I want to take 2 last polls, if we might, before we shut down. And these are probably the most important polls of the day. We want to make sure that this was informative and whether or not we want to continue with this, because depending on the success of this is whether we're going to continue on. So I'm going to start with poll 6. We're going to start that. Was the ZENcast informative? And you can just do exclamation point, vote, space, and either yes or no. And that'll get your vote in the poll. So I appreciate you doing that if you can vote. And that can be just about anybody online. If you're in the stream, feel free to vote. And I hope that we can enhance this and make it even better than today. Having a couple other people come online, being able to show their expertise on some of the products. We're still about 46 seconds out of this poll ending. it would be cheating if I said yes. I abstain, so go ahead and vote there. And I'm not getting anything in on the vote, so I'm curious to see if it's even working. And what we're going to do with this is we'll have snippets and so that you can review this should you need it later. We're also going to, with the questions here, thank you for voting, Lauren. The questions that are asked here, we can integrate into a training video so that you can see that online on the YouTube channel as well. So I just want to let you know that that's up and coming. The poll is now closed. We're going to complete the poll. And next we are going to do the last poll of the day. And the frequency. How often you as a customer would want to come to this particular viewing of products, ZENworks, ZENcast. So how often would you want to do this? Would it be, once a week, once a month, quarterly? What would you like to see? So that we get more interaction. We don't want to take up your time and develop things that aren't useful for you. So it's in our interest to make sure that we have what you need on the stream, being able to ask those questions that you don't want to just open up an SR for. You don't. It's something that you have questions on. We can go ahead and answer here on stream. Thanks, Moses, for voting. Appreciate that. Aaron, thank you. Monthly? Okay. Yeah, I think weekly might be too tight of a schedule. I've been watching other casts, and I'm noticing that on my survey and on my other streams that I've been watching is every other week or maybe even monthly. So if this is advantageous to do every other week or monthly, all the better. I do want to put in chat to talk more about that. Go to this survey that'll be listed here. Okay, that's a survey put out on the forums so that it kind of gives us a lot of these polls that we did today are in that particular survey, and I'm having a feeling that monthly or bi-weekly might be even better. The nice thing about that is if we need to hit other continents, we can do those on the alternate weeks. So that gives us time and give them some live content as well. So do look at that Google form. Moises, every 2 to 4 weeks. Good, thanks. And yeah, that's good. Because we have a lot to show, but we also, another idea is to make sure that maybe we'll have some bundle downloads. We've had those requests, like the migration from Open Oracle Java to OpenJRE, those types of things, and having this place as a community resource to be able to even download some of those preset bundles to use as templates. So that way we can better facilitate you in developing what you need in your environment. So if that makes sense, I hope that's helpful. Let me see. If we don't have any other questions, I think we're just about done on this stream. And I'd like to thank you for being here. Let me go on over to here. Yeah, I want to thank you for being here. Hopefully we'll have more news next week. We're going to have Darren. Again, this is a 12-week pilot. We may cut it up shorter where we go into every 2 weeks, but we'll keep you posted on that. You can come back to the stream. As you saw on the support and training site, you can see if we're live. If you subscribe, you'll also get a notification. So please do that, and I appreciate all your time out here today. And with that, we're gonna go ahead and close the stream out. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys attending. Talk to you next week.